Meanwhile, Jon Huntsman's campaign is continuing its New Hampshire or bust strategy. It is out with a new ad slamming a surging Ron Paul. The ad strings together a bunch of news clips that highlight inflammatory language in those newsletters that Paul sent out back in the 90s. I'm joined now by Tim Miller, spokesman for the Huntsman campaign, who is in Manchester, New Hampshire. It looks so much quieter behind you than it does in Iowa.
It's going to be busy here.
That's where everybody else is, but your candidate is sticking out right there. The latest New Hampshire poll, your candidate solidly in fourth, behind Mitt Romney, behind Ron Paul and Newt Gingrich. Gingrich is declining in the polls. In going after Ron Paul now, is Huntsman basically gunning for second place, not really first?
Well, absolutely not. We're playing to win in New Hampshire, and, basically what we're saying is this is gut check time for Republican primary voters. And if they look at Ron Paul, he has a history of statements that are outside of the mainstream, whether it's saying that 95% of blacks in Washington, D.C. are criminals, or conspiratorial statements about the World Trade Center bombings. And you can't beat President Obama if you're making statements that are outside of the mainstream. And Governor Huntsman has a consistent conservative record. He's going to be able to beat President Obama in November, and that's why he's working hard in New Hampshire to spread that message all the way from now until January 10th.
It's interesting. I see similarities between how Rick Santorum is running his campaign in Iowa by spending so much time there, by meeting and greeting groups all over the entire state and really investing his time there. It reminds me of what your candidate is doing in New Hampshire. Now, Rick Santorum is experiencing a big jump in the polls as a result of his efforts. Is that what you're hoping for? Is a surge for Jon Huntsman like that in New Hampshire?
Absolutely. We're working New Hampshire harder than any other candidate. Last night we had our 130th event in Mitt Romney's backyard in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. There was an enormous crowd. You could feel the buzz. Just a couple months ago we had an event there that had 10 people. Last night we had hundreds of people come out to see Jon Huntsman. We're doing this the right way, the New Hampshire way, grassroots, one handshake at a time. And you can see the movement in the polls. Right now we're neck and neck with Newt Gingrich. He's moving the wrong direction. We're moving up. And we're going to continue to see that as we get towards January 10th.
With that said, if all this effort doesn't really pay off, what if he doesn't place well in the polls? Will that be the end of the line?
Well, look, it's not to hypothesize about worst-case scenarios. We are going to work harder than any other candidate between now and January 10th, spread Jon Huntsman's message about restoring trust in Washington and ending the two deficits, the economic deficit, which has ballooned under this president, and the trust deficit, which is a result of a broken Washington that's full of bailouts and crony capitalism. And so what we're going to do is work hard to spread that message for the next 2 weeks, and we'll see how we do on the 10th.
All right, Tim Miller, spokesman for Jon Huntsman's presidential campaign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come, while the GOP presidential candidates battle it out in Iowa.